Hello and welcome to the Coaching Psychology Special Interest Group panel. My name is Bridget Jelly, and we are doing a panel this year for the Psychology Week, which is running from the 15th to the 20th of May. And the focus of this year's National Psychology Week is kia atawhai, so showing kindness, which obviously improves psychological well-being. So there are measurable benefits of kindness for both givers and receivers, resulting in improved well-being, stronger social connections, better resilience, increased feelings of happiness, trust, and self-esteem, just to mention a few. So in this short discussion, we are wanting to understand the role of empathy in leadership within organizations. So I have four amazing panelists here today with me who are going to share some of their insights and experience with us. So would like to introduce, first of all, Karen Tonkin, who is an organizational psychologist. She has a background and training in organizational psychology with over 15 years diverse experience, specializing in psychometric tools and also coaching. Cobus Deploy. Cobus is currently involved in lecturing and facilitation at the University of Otago on a variety of mental health related topics. In addition to that, he is also a coaching psychologist for a wellbeing company based in the UK. David Bennett, he is a very experienced leadership coach whose background is in the commercial sector here in New Zealand and also overseas. And lastly, the very esteemed Ian McCormick, who has coached over 6,000 individual and team coaching sessions in over 30 years, which is pretty impressive. So thank you very much to you all for your time today. Really excited to hear some of your insights. So probably should start off at the beginning. And Ian, I'd love for your thoughts on this. What is empathy and what has it got to do with leadership?
So I think what I'd like to do is just explain leadership in the context of coaching. So if I was referred a client and empathy was an issue, what would I do? So I think there are four elements to coaching, which I just talked through very briefly. So obviously empathy starts with listening skills. So what does that mean? It really means finding out what the meaning is behind what other people say. And only active listeners can really do that. So a really good question for a coach to ask someone in terms of listening skills, because of course we all think we're brilliant listeners, is when you are talking with someone or when someone is talking to you and you fundamentally disagree with their point of view, at the end of it, do you effectively summarize it to clarify your understanding? And that's kind of a nice way to get people on board. The second thing in coaching for empathy that's incredibly important is the issue of perspective. So can you be in the other person's shoes? And very often what I ask in coaching is questions like, what do you think this person's motivation is? And that often really stumps people and kind of challenges them to think about what it is that's important. Third issue is really how does the client develop compassion, being able to really understand and feel concern for the other person. And the last is that empathy varies greatly across culture. So New Zealand is an extreme culture in the sense that we have a very low power distance dimension in our culture, which really means we're very happy to criticize our leaders. And that's very untrue in many cultures where criticizing leadership is definitely not on. But in New Zealand, the research tends to suggest that we are particularly impacted by the empathy of our leaders. And empathy makes much more difference in our culture than one where respect is just given. So I hope that's useful.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thanks, Ian. So what I'm hearing is here that some of the key things is that active listening, perspective, compassion, taking into consideration that across cultures, empathy kind of may mean something different, and can be considered differently. Really interesting what you say about the New Zealand culture, though, and leadership and empathy. And that was so you seem to be criticized. We tend to criticize our leaders. Is that what I heard?
Well, we're very open. We're very,
open.
Jack's as good as the master kind of thing. And you
Yeah.
see that a lot. It's one of the reasons why, and I'm sure David can talk better about this, but, everybody, but I think the issue is that because we are very open in our criticism, leaders need to be very, very resilient and very empathetic in New Zealand. And sometimes those two things clash.
Yeah.
So just if people are interested, some of this stuff is, if you want to have a little look, the Centre for Creative Research in the US produces some really interesting white papers. I'll send you a copy after, Karen, but they've got a paper called Empathy in the Workplace, a Tool for Effective Leadership, which is quite useful, which we could circulate.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great to get that in, and we can put that out to our listeners most definitely. So on the topic of research, I guess, what does research tell us about empathy and its role that it plays in leadership? Cobus, what are your thoughts on this? What have you found?
Yeah, I think empathy is formed part of different leadership styles and different contexts. So there's always been different elements of it portrayed in the literature, but if we look at it purely from an empathic leadership style per se, hasn't been too much in the literature, although in the last couple of years there seems to be a growing body of evidence. I found one particular interesting study in the Journal of Leadership and Organizational Studies. It's a US-based study, where they actually looked at how authentic leadership impacts employee performance as well as job satisfaction. And as most of us probably would suspect, it was found to have significant effects on that. So there is growing evidence out there, although I think that there is some room for more research in that space. So in Australasia in particular.
Yeah. So perhaps a potential research topic for someone out there who's keen. So yeah. So what you're saying is that we've heard that it does contribute, or there is a correlation between empathy and performance, and also job satisfaction, which is actually really important. Job satisfaction at the moment, with the climate that we are in at the moment, where people are really considering, do I want to work here? Am I completely satisfied? And do I jump ship? So this could be an edge for leaders, couldn't it, potentially, in terms of maintaining and keeping their people. Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Cobus. All right, really curious to hear about where we've seen a lack of empathy in leadership, and what are those impacts? Karen, in your experience, have you come across this?
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of the work I've been doing over the last few years is around outplacement support and career coaching. And the most common comment that I hear from people in the first session is, my manager, my leadership team, they had no empathy for me whatsoever. Very common comment that I hear. And often what I hear from people is that once they've been told that their role's disestablished or there's a change happening in the team, they seem to feel shut out, that all of a sudden the communication stops. They're not copied in on emails anymore. People stop talking to them as if they actually don't work there anymore, even though they've got maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks left to go. One story that really stood out for me, I was working with the regional manager, and we talked about what she thought she might do once she finished with the company, and she wasn't too concerned about that. But her big concern, which we kept coming back to in every session, was what was going to happen on her last day. And she'd received an email from HR saying, you need to drop your laptop and cell phone off on this day. But there wasn't going to be anyone in the office when she did that. And that was really the resounding thing for her, is I put in all this work, 20 years, they don't care. There's no empathy for me. And she dreaded it. She felt like no one cared. And I think that was a lesson, certainly for me, that there are some things that employers can do around keeping the communication up, making sure there is somebody there on the person's last day. How would they like that last day to be? Small things made a huge difference for this person whose self-confidence and self-esteem really, really suffered because of that one particular issue.
Wow, thank you for sharing that story, Karen. That's That's quite unfortunate that happened. 20 years at an organization, and your last day, you're dropping your laptop off and there's no one around. Quite often in leadership, we ask the question to leaders, what's the legacy you want to leave? Maybe we need to ask organizations, what's the legacy you want to leave with the people that leave your organization? Because I don't know, that would leave a good taste in my mouth.
No, and I think the interesting thing was this was a regional manager. So oftentimes a team will organise a farewell, but the higher up you get in those levels, sometimes those people are forgotten how they want to finish up on their last day and how that sets them up going forward.
Yeah, and the impacts there, you just mentioned around, the lack of communication, or the communication stopped essentially, and the impacts on her self-esteem. That's definitely not what we want to achieve in the leadership space, most definitely. So, okay, if we don't show empathy, clearly there can be some impacts there. David, you've had a lot of experience in leadership coaching, from my understanding. What are the benefits that you've seen? Like, what are the tangible differences you've seen when a leader employs empathy genuinely as well?
Yeah, I think just carrying on from what Karen said, I think the direct link is just that. I think it's a key leadership skill, is being aware of the impact you have on the people around you, either directly, colleagues, peers, people on your team, but also to scale leadership, the impact of your decisions. And I think Karen's just described, just this lack, I suppose is the word, of just considering, what might the impact of this be? And as you say, people go out, they leave the organization and talk to others. With me, I've got some recent examples of team coaching and variations of, I've got a team of high performers, but the team's not high performing. And what I've done several times with colleagues, and I co-facilitate with the team coaching, is start off by doing a psychological safety questionnaire. And transparently share that data with the team, and then design an arc of team coaching using themes that have come out of some of the results of that questionnaire. And the biggest impact that we've had recently is using quite a simple behavioural preferences. So type like Myers-Briggs or one of those others. I'm sure Karen's uses one as well. And this, the one we've used, it's got 4 colours: blue, green, red, yellow, and different things. And I remember from when I first did something like that, just the impact that has with people about, so Bridget's not trying to make me go crazy when I ask for more detail before I make a decision or something. And I'm a bit wary of those for pigeonholing people, stereotyping people, but it's been resonant for me to see with various teams where this is the first time they've had that, because organizations are at times, have different organizations that don't invest in that type of development, and just that impact. And it's this, okay.
Yeah.
It's not intentional.
Yeah.
So it helps with this, I think, acceptance, and then this openness for discussion, and it's and some of the themes we had are things like expectations of each other, what's the purpose of the team, listening, which Ian talked about, how we make decisions, how we deal with conflict and tension. That's a huge one, of course, linking to safety. And then the feedback that we're getting is there's more alignment, there's more engagement, there's improved communication, there's definitely improved collaboration. And then you're getting into things like innovation and creativity improve, because there is this trust. It's okay to fail. It's okay to ask someone for help. For me also, one of the things I've specialised in is adult development theory. It's a lovely group of theories about how we can think in more complex ways through our lifespan, but it's not a given. And I certainly think there's a developmental capacity of empathy. Because for me, it's all around openness, that ability to self-regulate, to stay, for the prefrontal cortex to remain active and not get shut off because of threat. And I think in a team where you have some people are already there, they are more, I suppose, developmentally mature, if I can say that. And that can, in a team coaching environment, that provides a scaffolding opportunity. Whereas as team coaches, we get the feedback all the time that they feel we're modeling in really effective ways how they can interact. But not just the team coaches, but also the people around them on the team. And they can observe that, they see that model, gives them permission to try. And I suppose one of the other things we have used with teams is 360s. I use one called the Leadership Circle, and that has an excellent manual, interpretation manual that provides examples of habits of mind for different aspects of leadership dimensions and behaviours. And we always say you could go and do the behaviours, but you actually have to do some of this inner work. And I think it's that inner work around openness, self-regulation, ability to in the moment be aware of what you're thinking and how your thinking might inform your next action. I think that's really key to developing empathy.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Wow, there's a lot in there, David, that you said. Obviously that psychological safety, creating that. Really interested in, that the behavioural type assessments or the personality assessments that you talk about, because they really do help to, well, they're a bit of fun, aren't they? But they also help to, I guess, build tolerance and understanding, don't they, around that? We do have some differences. Bridget tends to talk a lot, but that's not because it's not because of me. It's just her personality. So it helps to, I guess, build that empathy for other people, and then also, like you said, around the listening, conflict, all that kind of stuff. But the benefits I'm hearing you say, there are quite a lot of benefits. I actually jotted down about 8 here. So alignment, in terms of the vision and purpose, and collaboration, communication, innovation, openness, creativity. So there's definitely loads of benefits to empathy. I think we might be on to something here with empathy and leadership, and it might be something that if you're working with leaders, that you might want to tap into a little bit, because I certainly think it might be one of the, this is just my personal opinion, top leadership traits that we need to have to lead. So we've pretty much come to the end of our panel, but I just wanted to open it up to everyone because we've got so much knowledge in this room. Does anyone want to add anything else or had any thoughts while someone else was talking?
Just one comment, that is that it's very easy to see empathy as being something that's kind of on the soft end of the scale. It's about listening, it's about seeing the other person's perspective, etc., etc. But empathetic challenge is also an enormously important trait for leaders to develop, because you need to be able to be courageous and be honest and be direct, but in a way that isn't offensive or isn't putting the person down, etc., etc. So empathy isn't just one end of the scale. It's definitely has a real place, both in terms of kind of compassion at the one end and challenge at the other.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes the soft skills are the hardest.
Yes.
Aren't they?
Maybe I
Fantastic.
can also just add there that I think coaching offers a wonderful opportunity for leaders to develop the skill, because it's ultimately a skill set that you can only really experience through communication. So it's a communication skill, and I can have the intention to be empathic, but if I'm not communicating in a manner that really impacts on you to the extent that you feel understood by me and heard by me, then although I have the intent, I'm not actually doing it as effectively as I would like to. So I think from a coaching point of view, it's a lovely space for a leader to actually practice that and build that skill, and then go and apply it on a more practical level in the organization. So I think it's something I'd also like to encourage leaders to consider if they feel this is an area of my leadership that I would like to improve. And I think we can all improve on that. I think we all have the capacity to be empathic. It might take some effort and it might take some energy, but it's well worth it in the end if you're willing to invest.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And that's the beauty of coaching, isn't it? Coaching's the perfect space for development of this. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Anything else we want to add? No. Okay, I think it's a wrap. Thank you so much to all of you giving your time for this panel for Psychology Week. Thank you to everyone who's tuning in, and we will attach some of the resources that were mentioned so that you've got a bit of reading if you like a little bit of homework. And otherwise, if you've got any questions or thoughts, please get in contact with us. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you to the panelists, and thanks to everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
And thank you very much, Bridget. You've done a brilliant job.
Yeah, thanks, Bridget.
Definitely.
No problem. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.